I'm reinventing myself to be my actual self. In the social media age, that's one of the most important quotes you'll hear. In my opinion, it's the most important quote in the era we're currently living in. Yes, I did come up with the quote myself, and yes, I did put that quote on a tee that you can purchase at my online apparel store, justtextclothing.com, but that still doesn't take away from the meaning of the quote. Because if you're on one of these massive online platforms in the year 2024 and beyond, then you're pretending to be something and/or someone that you think others will like and approve of. Hell, I'm not giving you my real voice, for a few reasons. But the words you're listening to are authentically me, though. I'm getting off track, so let's steer this back to the center of the road. Today's episode is focused on the quote, "I'm reinventing myself to be my actual self." You will listen to 5 unique stories about said quote. The first story, titled "Losing Myself," is the most truest to the quote, "I'm reinventing myself to be my actual self" of the 5. A girl's quest for acceptance leads to a stark realization. True joy lies in embracing her uniqueness. Now, without further ado.
Story 1. Losing myself. She had always been different, ever since she was a little girl. She had curly red hair and freckles, while everyone else had straight black hair and smooth skin. She had glasses and braces, while everyone else had contacts and perfect teeth. She had a love for books and science, while everyone else had a passion for gossip and fashion. She had been bullied ever since she started school. She had been called names, teased, mocked, and ignored. She had been pushed, shoved, tripped, and spit on. She had been excluded, isolated, rejected, and betrayed. She had no friends, no allies, no support. She had only her parents, who loved her but didn't understand her. She had only her teachers, who praised her but didn't protect her. She had only herself, who knew her but didn't like her. She had low self-esteem, low confidence, low happiness. She had high anxiety, high stress, high depression. She had negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative beliefs. She had no hope, no joy, no peace. She had a wish that she had made every night before going to bed. A wish that she had whispered to the stars, to the moon, to the universe. A wish that she had written in her diary, in her letters, in her poems. She wished she could be someone else. She had an opportunity that she had found online one day. An opportunity that offered her a chance to change her life. An opportunity that promised her a makeover that would transform her from an ugly duckling to a beautiful swan. She had signed up for a contest that was sponsored by a famous magazine. A contest that was open to all teenage girls who wanted to reinvent themselves. A contest that was judged by a panel of experts who would select one lucky winner. She had been chosen as the winner of the contest. Chosen as the recipient of the makeover. Chosen as the star of the magazine. Chosen as the new her. She had been thrilled to receive the news. Thrilled to pack her bags and fly to the city. Thrilled to meet the team and start the process. Thrilled to see the results and reveal the surprise. She had been transformed by the makeover. Transformed by the hairdressers, the makeup artists, the stylists, the photographers. Transformed by the clothes, the accessories, the shoes, the jewelry. Transformed by the surgery, the injections, the pills, the treatments. She had become beautiful by the standards of the society. Beautiful by the expectations of the media. Beautiful by the opinions of the others. Beautiful by the appearance of the surface. She had returned home to her old school, her old classmates, her old life. Home to show them her new look, her new attitude, her new self. Home to shock them, impress them, attract them, win them. She had succeeded in her plan. Succeeded in joining the popular clique, the cool kids, the in crowd. Succeeded in dating the hottest guy, the captain of the football team, the dream of every girl. Succeeded in becoming the most popular, the most admired, the most envied girl in school. She had everything, everything she had ever wanted. Everything she had ever wished for. Everything she had ever dreamed of. But she had nothing, nothing that really mattered. Nothing that really satisfied her. Nothing that really made her happy. She had lost herself, herself in the process. Herself in the makeover. Herself in the change. Herself in the lie. She had forgotten who she was, who she really was. Who she used to be. Who she wanted to be. Who she could be. She had betrayed her values, her interests, her passions. She had abandoned her books, her science, her hobbies. She had rejected her parents, her teachers, her mentors. She had no identity, no personality, no authenticity. She had no depth, no substance, no meaning. She had no soul, no heart, no spirit. She had a realization that she had made a mistake. A realization that she had wasted her time, her energy, her money. A realization that she had sacrificed her happiness, her integrity, her dignity. She had a decision that she had to make. A decision that would affect her future, her destiny, her fate. A decision that would require her courage, her wisdom, her strength. She decided to be herself, herself again. Herself as she was. Herself as she is. Herself as she will be. She decided to undo the makeover that had ruined her life. The makeover that had changed her appearance, but not her essence. The makeover that had given her beauty, but not happiness. She decided to embrace her uniqueness that made her special. Her uniqueness that made her different, but not less. Her uniqueness that made her stand out, but not alone. She decided to be proud of her appearance that reflected her genes, her heritage, her history. Her appearance that expressed her style, her taste, her personality. Her appearance that showed her beauty that came from within. She decided to pursue her passions that gave her joy that gave her life. Her passions that stimulated her mind that gave her intelligence. Her passions that filled her heart that gave her love. She decided to reconnect with her family that gave her support that gave her confidence. Her family that gave her guidance that gave her direction. Her family that gave her love that gave her peace. She decided to find new friends that shared her values that gave her purpose. New friends that shared her interests that gave her fun. New friends that shared her dreams that gave her hope. She decided to paint a new picture of her life, a picture that was true to herself, true to her reality, true to her potential. A picture that was beautiful in its own way, beautiful in its diversity, beautiful in its complexity. She decided to be happy with herself, happy with her life, happy with her choices. She decided to be her actual self.
Okay, I'm glad that the young girl was able to learn that being your actual self is better than trying to reinvent yourself to be someone else you don't like. Now on to story 2. A soldier's palette. From war's shadows to art's light, a soldier heals his soul through color and canvas.
Story 2. A soldier's palette. He had seen too much, done too much, lost too much. He had fought in wars that he didn't understand, killed people that he didn't hate, survived horrors that he couldn't forget. He had scars on his body and his mind, wounds that never healed, nightmares that never ended. He had returned home, but he didn't feel at home. He felt alienated, isolated, restless. He couldn't relate to his family, his friends, his society. He couldn't find a job, a purpose, a meaning. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't relax, he couldn't smile. He had PTSD, but he didn't admit it. He thought he was strong, he thought he was fine, he thought he could cope. He didn't want to seek help, he didn't want to talk, he didn't want to change. He wanted to be left alone, he wanted to be numb, he wanted to be dead. He had a gun, but he didn't use it. He had a bottle, but he didn't drink it. He had a car, but he didn't drive it. He had a life, but he didn't live it. He had nothing, but he had something. He had a flyer that he had found in his mailbox one day. A flyer that invited him to join a therapy group for veterans. A flyer that promised him support, healing, and hope. He had ignored it, but he had kept it. He had thrown it away, but he had retrieved it. He had torn it apart, but he had taped it back. He had hated it, but he had loved it. He had a choice, but he didn't make it. He had a chance, but he didn't take it. He had a phone, but he didn't call it. He had a date, but he didn't show up. He had regret, but he didn't show it. He had guilt, but he didn't say it. He had fear, but he didn't face it. He had pain, but he didn't heal it. He had a second flyer, a flyer that he had received in his mailbox the next week. A flyer that reminded him of the therapy group for veterans. A flyer that urged him to give it a try. A flyer that said he was not alone. He had curiosity, but he didn't follow it. He had interest, but he didn't act on it. He had doubt, but he didn't overcome it. He had pride, but he didn't swallow it. He had a third flyer, a flyer that he had found in his mailbox the following week. A flyer that repeated the offer of the therapy group for veterans. A flyer that appealed to his courage, his honor, his duty. A flyer that said he was needed. He had respect, but he didn't show it. He had gratitude, but he didn't express it. He had loyalty, but he didn't prove it. He had responsibility, but he didn't fulfill it. He had a fourth flyer, a flyer that he had discovered in his mailbox the week after that. A flyer that announced the last session of the therapy group for veterans. A flyer that warned him of the consequences of his inaction, his isolation, his despair. A flyer that said he had a chance to save himself. He had anger, but he didn't vent it. He had frustration, but he didn't release it. He had sadness, but he didn't cry it. He had desperation, but he didn't end it. He had a decision, and he made it. He had a phone, and he called it. He had a date, and he showed up. He had a life, and he lived it. He had a group, and he joined it. He had a therapist, and he listened to her. He had fellow veterans, and he talked to them. He had stories, and he shared them. He had problems, and he faced them. He had emotions, and he felt them. He had memories, and he processed them. He had trauma, and he healed it. He had a name, and he said it. He had a voice, and he used it. He had a face, and he showed it. He had a smile, and he smiled it. He had a past, and he accepted it. He had a present, and he enjoyed it. He had a future, and he embraced it. He had a purpose, and he found it. He had a passion, and he pursued it. He had a hobby, and he practiced it. He had a talent, and he developed it. He had a dream, and he achieved it. He had a painting, and he painted it. He had a canvas, and he filled it. He had a color, and he splashed it. He had a vision, and he created it. He had a gallery, and he displayed it. He had a crowd, and he amazed it. He had a critic, and he impressed it. He had a fan, and he inspired it. He had a friend, and he befriended him. He had a partner, and he loved her. He had a family, and he cherished them. He had a home, and he belonged to it. He had a new picture of his life, and he painted it.
That was beautiful. I have nothing else to add. This next story is not as beautiful as the previous one, but you know the saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Story 3. Breaking Free. Lawyer's facade crumbles as he chooses truth over tradition, embracing his authentic self.
Story 3. Breaking Free. He had always been ambitious, ever since he was a little boy. He had studied hard, worked hard, played hard. He had excelled in school, in college, in law school. He had joined a prestigious law firm, climbed the ranks, made partner. He had won cases, earned money, gained reputation. He had everything that society expected of him. Everything that his parents wanted for him. Everything that he thought he needed. But he had a secret that he had kept for years. A secret that he had hidden from everyone. A secret that he had denied to himself. He was gay, but he didn't accept it. He was afraid of the consequences, afraid of the reactions, afraid of the judgments. He was ashamed of his feelings, ashamed of his desires, ashamed of his truth. He had a girlfriend that he had dated for a long time. A girlfriend that he had proposed to, and she had said yes. A girlfriend that he had planned to marry, and she had agreed. A girlfriend that he had lied to, and she had believed him. He had a fiancée that he didn't love. A fiancée that he didn't want. A fiancée that he didn't deserve. He had a problem that he couldn't ignore. A problem that he couldn't solve. A problem that he couldn't escape. He had met someone that he had fallen for. Someone that he had connected with. Someone that he had loved. He had met a man that he had met at a conference. A man that he had worked with on a case. A man that he had spent time with, talked to, laughed with. He had met his soulmate that he had recognized. His soulmate that he had embraced. His soulmate that he had kissed. He had a dilemma that he had to face. A dilemma that he had to choose. A dilemma that he had to resolve. He had to decide between his career and his heart. Decide between his fiancée and his soulmate. Decide between his lie and his truth. He had a moment that he had to seize. A moment that he had to act. A moment that he had to change. He had a courage that he had found. A courage that he had used. A courage that he had shown. He had a confession that he had made. A confession that he had told his fiancée, his parents, his colleagues, his friends. A confession that he had told himself. He had a reaction that he had faced. A reaction that he had expected, and some that he had not. A reaction that he had accepted, and some that he had not. He had a consequence that he had suffered. A consequence that he had lost his fiancée, his respect, his clients, his reputation. A consequence that he had gained his freedom, his happiness, his love, his truth. He had a new life that he had started. A new life that he had chosen. A new life that he had created. He had a new partner that he had moved in with. A new partner that he had supported. A new partner that he had married. He had a new career that he had pursued. A new career that he had enjoyed. A new career that he had succeeded. He had a new picture of his life, and he painted it.
Well, you know that phrase, living your truth. Yeah. He definitely reinvented himself to be his actual self. Now, speaking of reinventing yourself to be your actual self, that's definitely story number 4. Painting with fire. Double life of a spy, brushes with danger, paints her escape. A tale of art and espionage. And let me say, this is my favorite of the 5 stories. You'll understand why in 5.5 minutes.
Story 5. Painting with fire. She had always loved painting, ever since she was a little girl. She would spend hours in her room, creating colorful landscapes and portraits with her brushes and paints. She dreamed of becoming a famous artist someday, but life had other plans for her. She was recruited by a secret organization when she was 18, after they discovered her exceptional skills in hacking, languages, and combat. They offered her a chance to serve her country and save lives, and she accepted. She became one of their best agents, taking on dangerous missions around the world. She had many aliases, but no real identity. She was always on the move, never staying in one place for too long. She had no friends, no family, no attachments. She had to lie to everyone she met, even to herself. She had to suppress her emotions, her desires, her dreams. She had to be cold, ruthless, efficient. She had to be a spy. But she never stopped painting. It was her only outlet, her only escape. She would sneak into art galleries and museums whenever she had a chance, admiring the works of the masters. She would buy sketchbooks and pencils, and draw whatever came to her mind. She would hide her paintings in safe houses and hotels, hoping that someone would find them and appreciate them. She wanted to share her art with the world, but she couldn't. She wanted to be free, but she wasn't. She wanted to be herself, but she didn't know who she was. One day, she received a new assignment. She had to infiltrate a terrorist group that was planning to attack a major city. She had to pose as a journalist and get close to their leader, a charismatic man named Omar. She had to gain his trust and find out his plans. She had to stop him. She packed her bags and boarded a plane. She put on her wig and glasses. She took out her passport and checked her name. It was Anna. She hated that name. She hated all her names. She wished she had a real name, a name that belonged to her, a name that meant something. She arrived at her destination and checked into a hotel. She set up her equipment and contacted her handler. She received her instructions and memorized them. She was ready to begin her mission. She took a taxi to the headquarters of the terrorist group. She showed her press credentials and asked for an interview with Omar. She was escorted to his office. She saw him sitting behind a desk, surrounded by maps and papers. He looked up and smiled. He had dark eyes and a beard. He was handsome. She felt a pang of attraction. She ignored it. She introduced herself as Anna and shook his hand. He invited her to sit down and offered her a drink. He asked her what she wanted to know. She asked him about his cause, his goals, his methods. He answered with passion and conviction. He spoke of injustice, oppression, resistance. He spoke of freedom, peace, justice. He spoke of God. She listened and nodded. She pretended to be interested and sympathetic. She recorded everything he said. She looked for clues, hints, gaps. She probed and questioned. She was careful and subtle. She was a spy. But she was also a woman. And as she talked to him, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt a connection, a spark, a warmth. She felt alive. She realized that he was not a monster, not a fanatic, not a villain. He was a human, a leader, a visionary. He had a story, a purpose, a soul. He had a name. Omar. She liked that name. She liked him. She wanted to know more about him, not as a target, but as a person. She wanted to talk to him, not as a spy, but as a friend. She wanted to be with him, not as an enemy, but as a lover. She wanted to be Anna, not a spy. She made a decision. She decided to quit her job and pursue her passion. She decided to reinvent herself and be her actual self. She decided to betray her country and join his cause. She decided to paint a new picture of her life. She decided to be a traitor.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? That there is more to this story than the past 5.5 minutes told us? Well, I have good news and other news. The good news, painting with fire, will continue. The other news, I have no idea when it will continue. It's gonna be a while, so make sure you hit that bell to be notified. You should probably hit the subscribe button as well. Now, before getting to story number 5, I have to say, this story is morally. The shit ain't right. You can say that the protagonist is a certified fuckboy. I have to say AI wrote this. I'm honestly surprised AI would write something like this. Fuckboyish. It's refused to write things less morally wrong. Now story 5. Gone for good. Tired of the boring suburban life, a man decides to create his own oasis.
Story 4. Gone for good. He had always been bored, ever since he was a young man. He had followed the rules, done the right things, taken the safe choices. He had married his high school sweetheart, settled in his hometown, worked at his father's company. He had a house, a car, a family, a job. He had everything, everything that society expected of him. Everything that his wife wanted for him. Everything that he thought he needed. But he had a dream that he had buried for years. A dream that he had hidden from everyone. A dream that he had denied to himself. He wanted to travel, but he didn't do it. He wanted to explore, but he didn't do it. He wanted to adventure, but he didn't do it. He was unhappy, but he didn't admit it. He was restless, but he didn't show it. He was dissatisfied, but he didn't change it. He had a plan that he had devised for months. A plan that offered him a chance to escape his life. A plan that promised him a new start, a new identity, a new self. He had faked his death in a car accident. Faked his death with the help of a friend, who was a doctor. Faked his death with the help of a fake body, fake blood, fake documents. He had left everything behind. Left his wife, his kids, his parents, his friends. Left his house, his car, his belongings, his memories. He had taken nothing but a backpack, a passport, a credit card, a phone. He had gone somewhere far away. Somewhere exotic, somewhere exciting, somewhere different. He had met someone that he had fallen for. Someone that he had connected with. Someone that he had loved. He had met a woman that he had met on a beach. A woman that he had danced with at a bar. A woman that he had spent time with, talked to, laughed with. He had met his soulmate that he had recognized. His soulmate that he had embraced. His soulmate that he had kissed. He had a dilemma that he had to face. A dilemma that he had to choose. A dilemma that he had to resolve. He had to decide between his old life and his new life. Decide between his old self and his new self. Decide between his lie and his truth. He had a moment that he had to seize. A moment that he had to act. A moment that he had to change. He had a courage that he had found. A courage that he had used. A courage that he had shown. He had a confession that he had made. A confession that he had told his soulmate, his friend, his new acquaintances. A confession that he had told himself. He had a reaction that he had faced. A reaction that he had expected, and some that he had not. A reaction that he had accepted, and some that he had not. He had a consequence that he had suffered. A consequence that he had lost his soulmate, his friend, his new acquaintances. A consequence that he had gained his freedom, his happiness, his love, his truth. He had a new life that he had started. A new life that he had chosen. A new life that he had created. He had a new partner that he had moved in with. A new partner that he had supported. A new partner that he had married. He had a new career that he had pursued. A new career that he had enjoyed. A new career that he had succeeded. He had a new picture of his life, and he painted it.
Yeah. Exactly. That story just felt wrong. Yeah. Let me just move on. Make sure you check out my apparel site, justtextclothing.com, to purchase the I'm Reinventing Myself to Be My Actual Self tee. Info on your screen and description below. See you in the future.